So thus far, we discussed what diversity and inclusion is, and we found different ways to look at it. We learned how to think about it from a different perspective, from the mindful connection, from the human connection perspective. And now we are on our way to see how this can be key to strategic key of success through our strategy. And we are going to do this through a short case study. For this, I'm going to use one of the articles that I wrote, and you might be familiar with it because I know that some of you have been reading my articles, which I find really, really grateful. And this is also a shout out to do leave comments and messages on what you would like to hear about, because as you see, it's super, super useful to discuss our cases and ideas, then I can react to it. So let's jump into the case study. I share my screen. I'm going to read it out loud because I know that some of you will be only listening to this, but I also that some of you actually are following who are more lip reading and everything in between. So I am going to read it out loud, show it on the screen, and I'm going to link it below so you can read the full article as well. Let's go for it. So here we are. This is the case study. It's Isha's story. Isha is a girl, and we are going to read how she felt in one of her professional experiences. Isha is from Jalandhar, Punjab, and for the last 2 years, she has been working in the Netherlands as a junior software developer at a tech company. Life treats her well, she loves her job, her team is great, and she has no financial issues. Besides, living in Europe is a thrill. On her yearly evaluation, her manager Tom praises her performance, and everybody seems to be happy. However, a few weeks later, after her evaluation meeting, she decides to hand in her resignation with no obvious reasons other than she found a new job at another company. Everybody is surprised. Tom calls a meeting with several other managers to find an explanation to the curious case, especially because it seems to be a pattern. A very similar thing happened with Isha's previous colleague, also from India. What Tom didn't know is that Isha called her family every week, and she was expected to tell how she feels and what progress she made. After the first year, there was a huge family pressure on her to show her progress. Her parents kept asking what her evaluation said and when she will become a senior engineer. After the second yearly evaluation, her parents were very disappointed that she didn't advance on the career ladder. They saw this as a complete lack of progress and expected Isha to find a proper company where she can develop further. Isha was a bit sad to leave, but her family meant everything to her and she wanted to make them proud. Letting them being disappointed again and again was not an option. At the same time, she really liked Tom and she wouldn't have wanted to be impolite with him or appear to be demanding. Also, she didn't think Tom would understand her, so she decided not to give any specific reason on why she leaves the company. Tom was left puzzled and felt powerless. So this is the situation here. And what's the trick to this? What's the trick that can make a difference in how we look at it? I think we have to start zooming out because, as I said, I'm a rather experienced cultural trainer. So my mind goes like, oh, this is a cultural issue. I understand where it comes from. Why didn't they do something? Why didn't they tell Isha? Why didn't they tell Tom about how career advancement is happening in India? But today, we are not talking about these specific things. We are talking about how to have a view on this case that looks at the personal experience of Isha and looks at the organization, looks at the personal experience of Tom. And after we thought about all this, how can we end up with something that we can implement into our strategy to prevent this from happening? Okay. So before we jump in with our expertise on the HR process or the or culture training or internal communication or whatever, we are going to have a common sense view. Okay. And this is where we are disconnected very often. The more professional we are, the more disconnected we get, because we see a case that we can analyze. And that's not okay, because we are going to leave out sometimes the essential thing. It's not a good thing for Isha. It's not a good thing for Tom. This is, again, a rotten human experience. And what can we do as an organization to not have these experiences? What can we do as professionals to get out from these experiences so we don't end up at the therapy 2 years later when we figure that, you know, either I'm stressed out, burnout, I have problems, or I turned my life again upside down, I had to switch jobs 3 times, what am I doing wrong? We can take a different view. So, first of all, the awareness and the context. If you remember about the wheel and the upper half, what kind of problem have we got? I think that this is a problem of inclusion and diversity, maybe. It is, yes, a problem of the HR. It is, yes, something about culture, but it is, I think, about different views clashing horribly. So I think it's safe to say that this is a diversity and inclusion issue. Now, let's go and look at the characters in this story before I jump into any cultural analysis, right? We understand the context. We have a tech company with Isha, with Tom, and we see a human being under pressure. Isha is under pressure. Isha doesn't feel good. We see that. Why doesn't she feel good? Because she's sitting there with this problem that she likes her job. She does well. She likes her manager, but her family is very, very unhappy. The next thing is that the manager, Tom, is there being frustrated and stressed, and he just doesn't understand. There is something happening that he's completely unaware of. He doesn't know, just doesn't understand. So we have a stress manager. So there is an energy leak at Isha. There is an energy leak at Tom. If you look at the organization is going to lose an excellent professional and have to start all over again. And also, thinking from the human connection point of view, we are always thinking, what do you miss when you don't see diversity? They are missed out on a person who had a very different way of thinking, a different sense of responsibility, a different sense of making progress that could have been translated into all sorts of approaches, maybe in her job, you know, maybe it's the way she writes the code and she approaches testing or any kind of revision. Sorry if you're not into that world. I've been training tech for a very long time. But it's also could be that they just simply missed out, because she would have been a wonderful addition to a diversity group where she could have spoken about her experiences and feedback could have been collected, right? So we are missing out on her experience because it's all in the unseen. Now, what could we do if we turn back time? And now I'm also going to add, obviously, here some more precise expertise, but bear with me. So if we could turn back time, first of all, we are looking at this context. We are understanding, okay, we have a diversity issue. What kind of diversity issue do we have? It's perhaps about national cultures. It could be that it needs a cultural training. If my organization says, I'm very good at diversity, I make my buildings accessible and all my materials accessible, for example, then they might advertise themselves and believe themselves sincerely that they are very good at diversity, but it's absolutely not going to cover this kind of diversity. Or they say that I have excellent support. Everybody can be themselves in this company. It doesn't matter your gender, your hair color, it doesn't matter. And they will be famous for being extremely inclusive. But if they didn't do any cultural training, it doesn't matter. So you have to know your kind of diversity. And if it's one case, if it was one case that happened once, and otherwise you're not really working with different nationalities, maybe you are a group of artists working together, but from the same country and from the same kind of cultural background, and you don't clash this way usually. It's only it would be only Isha and only this one case, then you might consider not putting, I don't know how many thousands of euros or dollars into an extensive cultural training, because then you would like to have something more general. You would like to have something more built up around the consciousness, so people can voice all sorts of concerns, but it's not going to lead to a very precise solution. So you have to understand what kind of context you are in and what your organization needs. What can you address? Because you cannot address everything. And you can build it up step by step, but you have to start with what's common sense. And it's not common sense to book the expensive training from the famous people. It's not common sense to advertise yourself as super inclusive, but not really telling why you're super inclusive. You have to be, again, specific and know the context. Okay, we understand that here we have a problem about expectations. Even if we are not trained in HR or in culture training, cultural competency, we understand that we have difference in expectations. Isha expected to be able to show progress, to be able to show a different title. In Isha's head, and according to her values, jumping a title, going up the ladder in the official sense is progress. This is how she envisions progress. In terms of what Tom thinks, perhaps it's not important for him that she's going on and changes titles every half year or every year. What he thinks is that I give you great feedback, you're doing well, you're picking up responsibilities, your team likes you, and you feel good, and that's good. You know, that's how he envisions perhaps what's happening here. So what can we do to prevent this? If I could turn back time, I would go and look into the hiring process and make career expectations super specific from the first moment, because often it's really lame, again, being specific when it comes to diversity, and you are talking to different people with different ideas. You have to make these ideas and the expectations as precise as possible. If you're the company who has to produce this agent process, then from that point of view, and if you're Isha has to learn how to voice her wish. This is going to be difficult for her because she's not coming from a culture where they speak up. We sense that from the text, because she didn't want to hurt Tom's feelings. She didn't want to come across as too pushy, but she has to be able to, in her professional capacity, voice what kind of career advancement does she wish to achieve. So Isha has to be conscious about that. If she goes abroad and if she's gonna, or she works for a company that plays according to different rules, things are not happening how she expected, in time she has to voice that, and it's not a bad thing. It's something to align. And if the company would be reacting badly to this, that's a problem. Then you have a problem with communication, and then you are not in a psychologically safe environment. In a psychologically safe environment, you can say that, listen, I don't feel good because I feel like I don't make progress. Then Tom could say, why do you think, when I'm so satisfied with your work? And then Isha could answer, then there would be a conversation between Tom and Isha there. And again, there could be a very specific conversation already during the hiring process. That's the best. But if you are in the situation, then Isha could say that. And let's go further. What does Tom need? Tom should have needed very good cultural training so that he understands. He doesn't have to know the traditions in India per se. it's handy if you have a clue on what to expect from different sort of areas of the world. But I really try to refrain from stereotyping, and I really teach all my clients and all my students to think for themselves and think about the dimensions of how we see, for example, voicing your opinion or expressing your expectations, you know, as not saying anything and expecting other people to sort of take care of you, to being proactive and discuss everything and being upfront with them. This is a dimension, and you can say that yes, some cultures and countries are here or here or here on these dimensions, but I'm teaching my clients to think for themselves, understand the extent of these dimensions. So what we could have given to Tom, because he's working in this international company and it had been happening. I mean, it had happened already once. What we could do is give him the opportunity to understand the situation better. And that's a diversity training, a cultural training that would really help him to, first of all, create awareness, and then give him tools how to communicate. So when he sees this happening, how to approach Isha, what to say, what to tell, how to try to get her opinion. You can acquire these skills, and it's amazing. It opens so many opportunities. Now, the next thing, we talked about Isha, we talked about Tom. What could Tom do if he would notice this and if he would understand this? Tom could go to discussion groups with other people from the organization, and they could sit down together bi-monthly, for example, and share these cultural experiences, share these experiences about diversity, and exchange this knowledge, so that he is not only trained once, but this thinking process is being reinforced, and also he can again voice if he needs a new training, if he needs to acquire a new skill because he wants to understand certain areas of diversity and inclusion better. So conversing about this and making it something that reoccurs, making it something that's active in your company is active inclusion. This is what inclusion is all about in action. That you do something about it, not only once, but you keep it active. If you don't talk about it, if you don't think about it, then it's not active. And inclusion is an active thing, so then it's just not happening at all. Okay. What is the most important to sort of close the circle is that, okay, you have feedback, you have people who are conscious about diversity, who understand situations, but then what do? You have to be able to provide them a place to collect feedback, and you have to be able to use that feedback. It's very important, because why collecting all the feedback and all that knowledge if you cannot put it back? And this is actually where I have a lot of experience, because as a consultant, I see many things, but if the organization doesn't have a mechanism how to process feedback and how to feed it back to the strategy, then it's very useless that I was there and I told what's the issue. So you have to be able to figure out, again, what's your vision, what's your strategy, how diversity fits into that, how do you envision a human connection? What should it be like? What should it focus on? What fits you and your vision? And then you create space in different levels of the organization. And it's a grateful thing to do, because it is going to, first of all, mean that you did the right thing, because you looked after your people, you looked after how people feel, you looked after how you feel in that organization, right? And you also looked after bringing more value to your organization. And from a personal point of view, to be able to go into diverse environments and train yourself and increase awareness, you are building up yourself. You are more and more value every single day with everything that you absorb from this diversity. And the more conscious you are, the more you can analyze these things, and the more you understand your place in diversity, the more you understand your worth in diversity and what you can bring to a company or to a project or to anything. And you also see your personal growth in it. So that's good for you to think about it this way. I had a very nice question from the audience. one time when I was talking about this topic, and the professional said, well, I really would like to make sure that I do the right thing for my team in the future and for my environment, but what can I do? And I said that just look at it, just build your awareness and ask yourself, what do I need? What does this context need? What kind of knowledge should I have to understand it better? What do I want to get out of it? Again, purpose. And if you follow the human connection philosophy, then one of the purpose of looking after diversity and inclusion is not only to do the right thing, but that you can keep on doing the right thing, which means that you will be able to stay in your position or your environment if you like it from a personal point of view, but from an organizational point of view, you do the right thing, and then you will be able to maintain success because you build on diversity and you harvest the benefits, and you're going to maybe even make it into your competitive advantage. And this is where magic happens, and this is why we do it. So increase awareness and ask yourself, what do you need? And how does it fit your puzzle? And how does it going to steer your wheel to the right direction? Or how do you need to repair that wheel? Where do you need to give extra strength? Or where is it wobbling? You know, visualize it, imagine it, and ask yourself really these questions, because that is going to help you to do the right thing. So, in conclusion to this recording, I'm hoping that I gave you some new ideas on how to approach diversity and inclusion. And I would love to hear what you think, and if you disagree with me. As I said, I'm coming from different disciplines, and what's very interesting, and it's just a little bit of a pondering, is, for example, in biology and anatomy, we are debating to which part of the digestive system does the stomach belong, the first or the second, you know? So that's a very interesting. So the first sort of the first trajectory or the second trajectory, and one science looks at it like this, and the other looks at it like that. Just like that, if you are merging so many disciplines, because for this model basically, and also for the framework, especially the way I teach and the way I train, I look at neuroscientific development, the neuroscience in general, when I look at different brain structures, when I look at how the brain develops in terms of relationships. And I also look at, of course, hardcore not marketing, but business strategies and business structures and organizational structures. And I'm merging these things, but these disciplines talk about my topics in different ways. So I didn't mean to offend anybody. And if something was not clear, and if you are interested in the scientific references behind this philosophy, then please reach out. And if you just want to have a chat about it, I'm very, very happy to share ideas and to just get to know you. And of course, if you would like me to become your trainer or coach you or give you a course, or maybe even give a course to your children, because I'm also active in high schools talking about diversity and inclusion and cultural differences, in preparing classes, for example, when they go out in the world to have an exchange program. I'm very, very happy to connect to you or to consult at your company how to approach things. I try to keep my clientele as diverse as I can, because I learn very different things from the very different groups, and that feeds my professional knowledge, so I can give you more. Okay, thank you so much for listening. It was so fun to prepare this webinar for you, and I am really hoping to see you very soon. Have a lovely day. Bye.